to be quite in control. I profit my life.
He was once the face of Australian television, charming, golden-haired, and beloved by millions. Women adored him, men admired him, and producers lined up to cast him in primetime hits. But in 2018, everything changed. When a series of explosive sexual harassment allegations emerged, Craig McLachlan's perfect image shattered like glass, sending shockwaves through the industry. And even after a court declared him not guilty, the damage was already done. What really happened behind the curtains of his glamorous life? How did one of the country's most adored stars fall so far, so fast? This isn't just a story about fame or downfall. It's about the thin, terrifying line between innocence and guilt in the era of public outrage. McLachlan didn't just lose roles. He lost his legacy. He lost the trust of an audience that once worshipped him. And when he tried to fight back, to tell his side of the story, the silence around him grew louder. In this video, we uncover the secret truths of Craig McLachlan's rise and ruin. From the glowing heights of 1980s stardom to the public crucifixion in the wake of the Me Too movement, we peel back the layers of fame, scandal, and the devastating consequences of a story too complex for headlines. Because sometimes what destroys a man isn't guilt or innocence. It's the story that others choose to believe. For a generation of Australians, Craig McLachlan was more than just a television star. He was a cultural icon. Emerging in the late 1980s, he captured the nation's attention as Henry Ramsay on the hit soap Neighbours, alongside a then-rising Kylie Minogue. With his tousled blonde hair, cheeky grin, and magnetic energy, he was the archetype of the Australian heartthrob, confident, youthful, and irresistibly charming. By the early 1990s, he had become a household name, transitioning seamlessly into the music industry with his band Check 1 to 2, scoring hits like Mona and earning himself a coveted gold Logie in 1990, the highest accolade in Australian television. He was the golden boy of the small screen, and his presence was ubiquitous. From Home and Away to McLeod's Daughters, from starring in musicals like Grease and The Rocky Horror Show to headlining the acclaimed crime drama The Dr. Blake Mysteries, McLachlan never left the spotlight. His career spanned decades, and his ability to reinvent himself kept him relevant long after other stars had faded. But beneath the sunshine image and the glossy magazine covers, cracks were beginning to form. Cracks that would later split wide open. In 2018, the facade collapsed when the Sydney Morning Herald, The Age, and the ABC published joint investigative reports that alleged McLachlan had sexually harassed multiple women during the 2014 production of The Rocky Horror Show. The accusations were graphic, disturbing, and deeply damaging. Suddenly, the man once considered safe, cheeky, and lovable was being portrayed as manipulative, predatory, and cruel behind the scenes. The story ignited immediately. It wasn't just about one actor. It was about trust, about power dynamics in the theater world, and about how long toxic behavior had been allowed to hide under the glamour of performance. The accusations came from actresses who had worked closely with McLachlan, many of whom claimed they felt silenced or intimidated at the time. Their allegations detailed unwanted touching, lewd comments, and an atmosphere of fear masked by theatrical playfulness. And while McLachlan denied all wrongdoing, vehemently and repeatedly, the storm had begun. He was dropped from the Dr. Blake Mysteries. Upcoming projects disappeared. Sponsors and studios distanced themselves. As the public weighed in, the narrative became larger than the man himself. McLachlan had become a symbol, either of male entitlement finally being exposed, or of a man destroyed by unproven accusations. Set against the backdrop of the #Me Too movement sweeping across Hollywood and beyond, Craig McLachlan's fall felt like part of something global, yet personal to every Australian who had grown up watching him. The charming larrikin from TV was now at the center of a national reckoning. The conversation was no longer just about whether he was guilty or innocent. It was about who gets to speak, who gets believed, and whether a star can ever truly come back from public disgrace, even when cleared by the courts. Craig McLachlan's journey into stardom began with humble roots and a natural charisma that couldn't be taught. Born in 1965 in Long Jetty, New South Wales, he showed early promise as a performer, bouncing between music and acting with a casual confidence that would come to define his public persona. His big break came in 1987 when he joined the cast of Neighbours, stepping into the role of Henry Ramsey. It was a perfect fit. His energy was electric, his comedic timing sharp, and his chemistry with co-stars undeniable. Neighbours was more than a show. It was a launching pad. Within a year, McLachlan was one of the most recognized faces on Australian television. He captured the zeitgeist of a carefree, sun-soaked Australia, becoming the poster boy for a nation in love with its own youth culture. Awards poured in, fans screamed his name, and the industry couldn't get enough of him. Riding that wave of adoration, he pivoted into music with the band Craig McLachlan and Check 1 2, releasing the hit single Mona, which topped the charts in Australia and the UK. He wasn't just an actor who tried music, he was a legitimate pop sensation. At the 1990 Logie Awards, he swept the ceremony, taking home the Gold Logie, Most Popular Actor and Most Popular Personality on Australian TV. His appeal seemed boundless. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, McLachlan remained a reliable fixture on screens and stages. From dramatic roles in Home and Away to scene-stealing performances in theater, he maintained a presence that few Australian actors could match. In 2013, he reinvented himself once again with the Dr. Blake Mysteries, a period crime drama that introduced him to a new generation of viewers. His portrayal of the brooding, intelligent Dr. Lucien Blake received critical acclaim and solidified his place as a mature, respected actor. But with each success, there were whispers, rumors of difficult behavior, of an ego grown unchecked, of lines blurred between performance and reality. Colleagues occasionally described him as charming but controlling, generous yet volatile. Nothing concrete, nothing public, and nothing that could shake the illusion of Australia's favorite larrikin-turned-leading man. Then came the Rocky Horror Show revival in 2014. McLachlan was cast as Frank Enferter, a role that required sensuality, boundary pushing, and a deep connection with the cast. It was a bold performance, and he threw himself into it with gusto. Audiences loved it. Critics praised his energy and commitment. But backstage, things were different. In 2018, the dam broke. A group of women who had worked with McLachlan during Rocky Horror stepped forward with allegations that painted a vastly different picture. They described a man who used rehearsals as excuses for sexualized contact, who brushed off discomfort as part of the character, and who created an atmosphere where boundaries were routinely crossed. The accusations ranged from inappropriate touching to sexually charged comments made in the guise of humor. The impact was immediate. McLachlan was dropped from Dr. Blake. Media outlets ran front-page stories. Social media turned against him with a speed and ferocity that was almost surgical. Public opinion flipped overnight, from adoration to disgust. For the first time, his charm was no longer seen as harmless, but as calculated. His playfulness, once endearing, now reinterpreted as predatory. As the story grew, so did the divide. Supporters claimed he was being canceled, unfairly, the victim of trial by media. Critics said this was long overdue, a reckoning for years of unchecked behavior. In interviews, McLachlan insisted on his innocence, at times visibly emotional, at others combative. He launched defamation proceedings against the ABC and Fairfax, accusing them of character assassination. But the damage was done. The man who had once been everywhere suddenly had nowhere to go. Invitations dried up, projects vanished, friends distanced themselves. What began as whispers behind closed doors had become a national scandal, playing out on every screen in the country. The courtroom became Craig McLachlan's last stage. In 2020, he faced 7 charges of indecent assault and 6 charges of common assault, all stemming from his time on the Rocky Horror Show. The trial was intimate, grueling, and deeply humiliating, an unfiltered look behind the curtain of a man whose public persona had long been polished to perfection. But inside those 4 walls, no makeup, no applause, and no script could protect him. The accusations were visceral. One actress described how McLachlan allegedly ran his finger along her inner thigh during a scene beyond the choreography. Another claimed he kissed her on stage in a way that deviated from the rehearsal. The stories came with tears, shame, and a long silence finally broken. These were not anonymous voices. They were his former colleagues, once friendly, now united by pain and resentment. McLachlan denied every allegation. His defense team argued that the interactions were consensual or misinterpreted within the playful and often risque nature of the show's staging. He described himself as a flirtatious performer, someone who always pushed boundaries, but never without consent. His supporters pointed to years of success without prior accusations, insisting this was a media witch hunt fueled by the Me Too wave. The trial ended with the magistrate ruling him not guilty on all charges, citing inconsistencies in testimonies and the inherent ambiguity in live theater performances. But the verdict offered no redemption. The public had made up its mind long before the courtroom did. Even in victory, McLachlan was a broken man. In an emotional televised interview, he spoke of sleepless nights, suicidal thoughts, and a deep sense of betrayal. "I was found not guilty, yet I live like I'm guilty," he said, his voice cracking. "I can't work. I can't go outside. People whisper. People look away. What justice is that?" He attempted to reclaim his narrative by suing the ABC and Fairfax Media for defamation, hoping to restore his name. The lawsuit included secret recordings, text messages, and private communications meant to show inconsistencies in the accuser's claims. But the trial backfired. Under cross-examination, new allegations emerged, more disturbing details, more media headlines. The deeper he dug, the darker it became. Midway through, he withdrew the lawsuit, citing emotional strain, but many believed the damage control had spiraled into a fresh disaster. Behind the scenes, industry insiders spoke off the record. Some defended him, describing a misunderstood man destroyed by public hysteria. Others said the court's decision didn't absolve the toxic atmosphere he allegedly created. Casting agents quietly removed his name from lists. Productions that once sought him out now ghosted him completely. Perhaps the most tragic revelation was that McLachlan, for all his talent and charm, had no one left in his corner. Former friends vanished. His longtime partner, actress Vanessa Scammell, stood by him, but even she appeared drained by the ordeal. In one interview, McLachlan said, "I used to walk into a room and people smiled. Now they either freeze or walk away." He had become radioactive, untouchable. The kind of person who elicits silence in conversations. Not because people know he's guilty, but because they don't want to be seen defending him. For a man who once basked in applause, the silence was deafening. Craig McLachlan's story is not just a scandal. It is a profound unraveling of identity, trust, and legacy. In the world of fame, perception is everything. And in McLachlan's case, perception became his prison. Here was a man who had mastered the art of being loved. From the sun-drenched sets of Neighbours to the brooding atmosphere of Dr. Blake, he carried with him an aura that few Australian actors could match. He was versatile, bankable, and uniquely charming. But charm, when twisted under a microscope, becomes suspect. In a post-Me Too world, the same charisma that once opened doors can suddenly look like manipulation. The smile becomes a mask, the joke becomes a red flag. The accusations against McLachlan were serious, specific, and deeply emotional. And though the legal system cleared him, the court of public opinion rendered its own, harsher verdict. That divide between what is proven and what is perceived became the chasm he could not cross. What makes this story even more difficult is the silence it leaves behind. Not just the silence of a fallen celebrity, but the silence of an industry unsure how to deal with complexity. Some saw him as a victim of media persecution, a man destroyed without conviction. Others believed justice didn't go far enough, that the courtroom missed what was felt backstage. And somewhere between those poles sits the uncomfortable truth, that fame and morality don't always speak the same language. We don't claim to know whether every accusation was true, but what's clear is that Craig McLachlan is no longer the man Australia once thought he was, whether because he changed or because the world finally looked closer. There's a particular sadness that hangs over stories like this. It's not just about the career lost or the roles erased. It's about the erosion of trust between actor and audience, colleague and co-star, man and myth. McLachlan's life wasn't derailed by one moment, but by a tide of voices that couldn't be ignored. And when those voices rose, the show ended. So we ask you, what do you believe? Do you see Craig McLachlan as a cautionary tale about rushing to judgment in the digital age? Or as a powerful figure who finally faced accountability in a world that's no longer willing to stay quiet? Let us know, because stories like this are never just about one man. They're about all of us and the lines we draw between truth, belief, and legacy. There was a time when Craig McLachlan's face lit up every television in Australia. When his laugh felt like home, his music played on summer drives, and his characters lived in the hearts of millions. He wasn't just famous, he was trusted. He represented a version of Australia that was bright, carefree, and uncomplicated. A simpler time, before social reckonings, before public trials unfolded in headlines, before nostalgia turned bitter. Today, that image is gone. Whether lost unfairly or rightfully dismantled, only time and memory can decide. For some, he'll always be Henry Ramsay, the larrikin with charm to spare. For others, he's a symbol of everything that was allowed to fester behind the curtain of celebrity. But for all of us, he remains a reminder of how quickly the tide can turn and how fragile the pedestal of fame truly is. There's something haunting in how it all ended, not with a dramatic send-off or final performance, but with silence. No applause, no encore, just absence. We may never fully know the truth of what happened backstage during those years. Perhaps even those involved carry only fragments of it, distorted by time, fear, and pain. But one thing is certain, the legacy of Craig McLachlan is now shadowed by the questions we cannot answer, and by the silence that followed the final curtain call. Some stories are never told, but now you know. And maybe that changes everything. Or maybe it changes nothing at all.